Greetings. My name is Stan Hustad, and I'm a teacher, I'm a writer, I'm a broadcaster, and for many years I've been a business performance coach helping world-class entrepreneurs and business leaders and those who want to be able to find a way to build a business and have a life. And I welcome you to this series of conversations which we call What It Takes to be one of the 3% who can truly be leaders in their field. And that's what we're hoping to do. And we'd like to talk to you a little bit today about being one of the 3%. A number of years ago, I had had a successful career in broadcasting all around the world, and I thought I was doing quite well. But there in my mid-40s, all of a sudden something happened. One night, my wife literally threw the dish towel down as she was cleaning up and said, "This is exactly what I was hoping for when I married you 20 years ago. I was hoping that after 20 years of marriage, we would have no house, no car, no job, no money, broke, and a kid in college." And so, you know what? She was mad, and she threw down the towel, said something not very nice, and left the apartment. Well, that was my situation. And so from that time on, I decided that I had made some mistakes that almost all of us make, even though we may have had reasonably successful lives and careers. And that was that I really didn't know some of the things about true success. And what I discovered in my search for true success, what it takes to be successful, that most of the things that it takes I had never learned in my life experience, and I'd certainly never been taught them in college or university, even in graduate school. So what we want to do is just take some time, less than 20 minutes for you busy people, to learn some vital lessons, to perhaps get a taste of what you could get into and what you could do so that you could have both the skills and the ability, the strategies, and most importantly, the stories to help you make your mark in the world to achieve the things that are very important to you. Well, what's this 3% all about? Well, one of the things that you need to discover is that becomes your metaphor. We'd like to be one of the successful select 3%. Now, it was based on a very interesting thing, a story, a fact, an anecdote, perhaps even a bit of a legend that I discovered as I was seeking to rebuild my life and rebuild my career. And it's based on some work that was done many years ago, based on some of the work that came out of a gentleman named David McClelland, who was really involved in seeking what is it that goes into being successful or achieving the things you want in life. Now, wouldn't that be nice if we could have some kind of roadmap to success, or at least some pathway to success, or at least some of the principles that are necessary? And that'll probably be as good as it gets, some principles. And what McClelland discovered is that it's nice to be intelligent, it's nice to be smart, it's nice to be rich, it's nice to be good looking, but all of those things, even inherited wealth, did not seem to be fundamentally significant in whether people achieved success or not. What they discovered is that the level of deep goal orientation, real purposeful, powerful, planned living and career thinking, strategies, not necessarily what you're exactly going to do, but strategies as to what you want. What it came down to is that successful people had answered this question: what do you want? Later on, I discovered that even the master teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, oftentimes said, "What do you want me to do for you? What do you want?" And I have discovered in years of coaching and teaching and being on the radio and helping people is most people can't answer that question with any degree of certainty or power. We get a lot of, "Well, I'd like to, it would be nice, I think this would be there." We go through life kind of dealing with the day, living somewhat accidentally. And what happened is most people landed up being in one of 4 categories. And what I'd like to do today is just to introduce you to those 4 categories and then give you an assignment to help you become the one you probably want to be in. What McClellan discovered was this, that when it came down to setting goals, having a deep sense of purpose about what you wanted in your life and your business, only 3% of the population, 3% of the population had done this. They really knew what they wanted out of their life and business. They were very purposeful and very intentional about it. They had written things down. And not only had they written things down, they thought about them. And they thought about them a lot. And then they put together a plan. And it may not be terribly highly focused plan, but they had a plan as to how they were going to achieve it. They were working that plan. They had a sense of energy and accountability that they put into their lives. And what these people did through perversity, and a lot of perverse things can happen to you, and adversity, bad things happen to you, they pressed toward their marks. They looked with real clarity at what they wanted out of their lives. And they decided, that's what I want. And through the long haul, they began to make their marks, make their moves, set their goals, achieve their goals. When they achieved goals, they set new goals. If you asked them, where do you want to be in 3 to 5 years, they knew with great certainty what they were hoping for, what they wanted to, what they were working for. They could even answer the question is, how do you want your life to be different in the next 6 months? They could tell you that. 3% of the population know who they are, what they want, and where they're going, and how they hope to, and how they plan to, and how they intend to get there. Now, as you look at your life and look at the work you're doing and the career place you are at, are you one of those 3%? Well, I had to confess that I wasn't there. Well, then we discovered that since we may not be in the 3%, perhaps we're in the 10%. What it turned out is that 10% of the population were not quite as focused as the 3% and not quite as intentional and perhaps not quite as determined, but these people had a sense of what they wanted. Their goals were certainly thought about. Where they wanted to be was a part of what they did in their living and their thinking and perhaps some of their planning. These people, just like the 3%, are usually quite successful people. They are pressing on. They are making their marks. They're achieving their goals. They're dealing with the bad things that happen to them and taking advantage of the good things. And that's really important because you see, oftentimes you don't know what an advantage or an opportunity really could be unless you have a sense of where you want to be. Having a position, having a job, having a vocation which is just something I'm doing, those are seldom the qualities that go into successful people. They are not people who are dealing with the day as to what they want to achieve just today. They are thinking about the future. They have a long, clear view of where they want to be in their life. Now, the 10% are people who have a good deal of that in mind. Oftentimes there's a little bit of fuzziness around the edges. There's not a great deal of clarity about some of the deep specifics, but they know where they want to go. Now again, where does that put us? Well, we're now at 13%. 60%, the vast majority of people, are what we call hopes, wants, and wishes. Now, I'm not going to be critical of people like this. In a lot of my life, I've been that way. And in a lot of my life, sometimes I'm still that way. I hope to. I want to. It would be nice. And so what we do is we go about our lives dealing with the day, making the living, keeping the job, trying to pay our bills, raise our children, do some good, work in our community, perhaps serve a higher cause. We are involved in our worship and our service. All the things that go into a person who is taking full responsibility for their life and their success. Except they're not fully taking advantage of all the qualities and all the abilities and all the capabilities that they might have, not just to deal with their destiny, but to determine their own destiny. 60% hopes, wants, and wishes. And those aren't real clear to them, but they can talk a little bit about it. It would be nice, boy, if I won the lottery, well, maybe I could take a vacation. Maybe I should go back to school. What would be my ideal job? Gee, I don't know. Well, something I would like. Again, that's kind of how we are. You see, in our kind of evolution, we had to deal with the day. We had to find enough food to eat, and we had enough places that we could find shelter, and we had to find a way to care for the young, and taking responsibility for our long-term vision of life was just something that was not seemingly natural to who we are and what we are, except that what we now discover is that deep inside of us there is a spiritual side that does cause some anxiety and angst, because we are made in such a way that we can think about the future and perhaps anticipate the future and perhaps delight in the future and actually achieve the future. There's something about us, some divine spark, that causes that longing, that desire in us. But most of us just quite never achieve it. As someone said, most of us die with our desires and our music and our great achievements inside of us. We never were able to express them and get them out into the world. 60%. Well, what's left? 27%, unfortunately, really no hopes, no wants, no real wishes, just kind of dealing with the day, no long-term vision, just, hey, you know what? Thank goodness it's Friday. Oh my goodness, it's Monday. And so we kind of live day by day, not with great intention, not with great power, not with great purpose, not with great energy. We can live reasonably happy lives and perhaps even reasonably successful lives, and at moments of adversity sometimes we can dig deep inside of us and find the support and the courage and some of those divine spark qualities to help us get through. We can certainly care for one another, and we can be cared for. Some great quality called love. And where did that come from? Where did love come from? Which is a part of our human being and a part of our spiritual being. All of that can make life to the point that, all right, it was okay. It was never what it could be, but it was okay. One of the exercises I really encourage people to do is the one that I learned a number of years ago, but then it was reinforced by a gentleman named Peter Drucker, a great leadership and management consultant. And toward the end of his consulting career, he said this: I discovered that I could not really help a man or woman with their life, their career, or their business unless they could begin to answer this question. How do you want to be remembered? If you can't say, hey, when life is done, when my career is done, when my tenure at this work is done, how do I want people to remember me? The relationships I had, the character that I displayed, the achievements that I brought forward. Relationships, character, achievements. How do I want to be remembered? One of the exercises that I give to people is simply this. Plan your eulogy. You will be gone. When that happens, when people remember you, perhaps when they write your obituary, perhaps when your children or a spouse or a partner or someone you think dearly of stands up and says, hey, this is my friend, this is my colleague, let me tell you how I remember them. What do you want them to say? Now, I would encourage you to start there. Let's think deeply about this. I want to be one of the 3%. I do want to live that way. And I'm going to learn a little bit more about how that can happen. And I'm going to learn a little bit more about how I can set goals and how I can put those goals into action plans. I'm going to be one of the 3%. Then simply think about, how do I want to be remembered? Some people have even used this as a time to plan their memorial service or their life celebration service. How do you want that to go down? What do you want to be said? What do you want people to sing? What do you want people to say? What's the good things that will come out of the grieving from your passing? And there should be good things. Then simply do this. Start writing down a list of the things you want in life. Have fun with this. Blue skies, green lights, dream ahead. Everything I want to have. Stuff, good stuff. Things I want to do, kind of like that bucket list. Things I want to do. More importantly, what do I want to become? What kind of person? What kind of reputation? What kind of character do I want to become? And fourthly, who do you really want to serve in life? Years ago, Bob Dylan sang a song which said, you got to serve somebody. And you do. You were made to serve others. I want to make this very clear. The purpose of life is to serve others. You have one entitlement in life, and that is you are entitled to bless and serve others. That's the deal. How do you want to do that? How do you want to be of service to others? Now, starting to discover the answers to these questions and exercises is just the start to being world class, both as a business person, a business leader, and as an entrepreneur. And I encourage you to make your mark and resolve right now to be one of the 3%. Thank you. And we'll see you again on What It Takes.